It's Kasim with the Daily Google News, and I'm here with FA and Usama, two of our brilliant strategists. And today we're going to talk about our less is more strategy, or what I like to call why you're going to pay us the same amount of money to do less work.
Basically. So I guess I'll take the lead. And the reason it's less and more is because with PMax, you're across 7 networks, which means it needs, is that 7 or 8? 7 or 8, basically, which means it needs a lot more time to optimize. And what Google tells us is that you need at the bare minimum 14 days to optimize plus conversion lag. So if you have a 6-day conversion lag, you need at least 20 days before you can start analyzing data, which means you can start analyzing data from the 21st day. Every time you go in and make a change, which includes adding asset groups, changing out images, changing the budget even, you kind of toss it into a bit of a learning phase again. That learning phase could either go really well and you can see results immediately and you just start scaling up immediately, or it can go downhill. We've seen it go more downhill with every change than we've seen it go uphill. So every time we make a change, we end up waiting 2 to 3 weeks to start seeing consistency again across our results. So one of the problems that's going to kind of come around is if you're a client with us and you want us to spend $5,000 a month, and PMax starts spending, what is $5,000 a month a day? Let's do $3,000. That's easy. If you want to spend $3,000 a month, which is $100 a day, right? And then all of a sudden PMax starts spending 120, we're going to go over your budget, right? But the problem here is as long as you see consistency in your results and it's a very gradual increase in performance and it gets better over time, you don't want to touch it, because every time you touch it, and if we're trying to control the budget when we're trying to touch the campaigns, it's going to affect your performance and we're going to take a dip. So it's going to do you more harm than it's going to do you more good. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I'm gonna play the role of the client, and try to lob a couple of grenades. So the first one is, hey, I have a really restricted budget. I've got people to report to in a department. I only have the $5,000 that I gave you, or the $3,000 or whatever. How do we control this so that I'm not going wildly off the rails, A, and B, how far off the rails can we go? How big is the risk here? Can it go $5,000 to 30, or are there guardrails?
So if you're like really tight on budget and you're spending like $5,000 a month, whatever that daily amount is, I'm gonna go back to $3,000 because it's easier. Yeah, $100 a day.
$100 a day. Hold on, I'm doing the math.
Right?
$166 a day.
$166. So if you're spending $166, or that's what you want to spend it, F is like, I already knew this shit. Well, meanwhile, Effie was on the computer typing it out while we were discussing it. So if you're trying to spend $166 a day consistently, but you're only tight and can only spend $5,000 in total, I would honestly set the budget to like maybe 140 to play it safe.
And so I know Google overspends on a day-to-day basis, but in PMax, is it overspending on a monthly basis, or is it making
We've seen it happen a couple of times, like where PMax just shoots and spend all of a sudden. Like if it starts hitting performance goals all of a sudden, or starts overachieving performance goals, or it finds something that does really well, it'll just shoot up. It'll just start spending like crazy amounts all of a sudden. It'll balance out after a couple of days after it realizes that it's going above, but it'll still overspend. And we've had a client that overspent maybe $600 in 3 days because their performance improved by like 30% over that 3-4 day period over that week compared to the last week, but they also spent $600 more, which means we actually, their budget was what? Their budget was like $2,500 and we spent $31 that month because of the 2 days that it overspent, 2 or 3 days that it overspent like ridiculous amounts.
And then changing the budget resets the timeline that Google's looking at from a budget perspective.
Pretty much.
So if your budget is a fiscal month and we're at the end of April, or at the end of May, and then we change the budget, Google's looking at it just over a 30-day period. They don't care where we are. So they'll average across that 30-day period. And if it's front loaded, you could end up spending way more in May than you expected. So here's another challenge as the client. So I'm just going to pay you to just sit there and do nothing. Like you don't work.
You're going to pay me to know when to touch that campaign. That's what you're going to pay.
Well, and maybe more importantly, I'm going to pay you to know when not to touch the campaign. Because the folks that like to go in there and, and tinker, they're the ones that are constantly resetting learning, which means Google's never going to know what to do. And the point that I really want to make is we're still watching the campaigns. So just because somebody's not, like, you can't enable the campaign and then come back after 3 weeks and be like, all right, what are we doing now? You have to like watch, monitor, and sort of build your strategy because we're making all of our changes in blitzes. And
Yep.
so the amount of work is, I think, equal, maybe even a little more, because of the way that we have to push prospective tasks, but we're just doing them, kind of stacked, and then we're blitzing our tasks.
Oh yeah. The perfect example I have this, I'm gonna cut FA off and then I'll let you talk. The perfect example I have of this is that we have a baby client that sells strollers and car seats, right? We launched it all in a single PMAX campaign initially, and then we saw there were some brands that were outperforming everything else. Without even touching that campaign, we immediately launched maybe like 4 or 5 PMAX campaigns for specific brands. And we went from spending like 10 grand a month to like 40 grand a month immediately in a span of like 2 months, which is a massive increase in budget while maintaining the client's ROAS. So we 5x his revenue from Google Ads, probably more because we couldn't track all of it. But it was because we knew what was happening in the PMAX campaign and we knew when to touch it and what not to touch, kind of situation.
Dude, PMAX is going to be, it's hard to sell. It's hard to sell because it is 7 times the size of any other campaign. It's going to take longer to learn. It's harder to control. Any changes reset learning. Learning phases are long. 2 to 3 weeks is a long time to say, don't touch anything.
Yeah, but that's why we built like 80, 90 assets. Like before that, before Performance Max, let's give an example. Like you create a search campaign, like top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, and a DSA to fish for the new keywords. Then you find something, you create a new campaign. You find something, you create a new ad group for that. So you build up to what you learn. Since Performance Max is taking too much time to learn and resets learning every time, what you do is, instead of building on, you just build at the maximum amount, like every logical in-market ad signals, every logical targeting options, keywords, customer list, ad set. We create that like 80, 90, even 100 ad set groups. And in time, instead of
narrows down,
just put that, just goes down.
Dude, what a brilliant way to look at that, FA. So we used to go like this, and now we're going like this.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's the same amount of work. It's just all front loaded.
Yeah, we just do all the work at the beginning of time.
Yeah, and then there's nothing to do, and it's set it and forget it. And we have no job.
What did you guys do? Like when you showed the work, like what did you guys do this week? Oh, we created this campaign, we created this ad group, like we created this new strategy. But right now it's just we paused this, we closed this, like we canceled this, we removed this, like we just built down.
Dude, it actually, so here's the way that I'm going to pitch this from now on is, especially that 3-week learning period, that works to our favor, because if it was any longer than that, I can see clients getting a little hesitant. But if it's every 3 weeks, that means that once or twice a month, depending on when that epoch lands, we're making a big blitz and changes. And then we have to monitor those changes and then report on them. So it's still a monthly cadence, more or less. It's a little bit more than a month because it's every 3 weeks.
It's
but
basically
that's the
before
manage with clients.
Yeah, basically before you were making changes like throughout every week kind of situation, a little changes every now and then. Now it's more you watch it for like 2 to 3 weeks and then you just toss all the changes at once and then let it PMAX figure out where it wants to go from there, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like an ongoing calibration, which honestly makes a lot of sense with machine learning. It's like, okay, the machine is doing this, I'm monitoring the machine over time, and then I'm going to give it new inputs, and then I have to see how it is going to accept those inputs. So it's going to take all the nuts and bolts that I'm providing it, and then I get to see how it uses those nuts and bolts, but it takes time to figure that out. And then now I start to see like, oh, okay, this seems to be the performance. And the 3 weeks really is because if learning is 2 to 3 weeks, that means I need to be able to see what the performance is like post-learning. So to the point that you were making, Usama, we've got 14 days worth of learning, 6 days worth of time lag. So now I have 20 days that I don't take into consideration, or at least not strongly. It's not until day 21 and beyond that I'm starting to look at, here's what the performance looks like.
Yeah, it's more of a CM work right now, more than specialists, because we have a bunch of examples. Like clients are pushing, hey, John, we need to do something. And John's like, I'm going to do nothing.
Right.
Well, we need to change something. I'm going to do nothing. Let's increase, but I'm going to do nothing. And just starts hitting the goal. And they're like, what did you guys do? Literally nothing.
We just let it go. So this is what's really interesting is a lesser agency would be listening to the clients, be like, oh, we're building campaigns, we're changing asset groups, we're changing budgets. So this is, it's tough love. This is like the hard medicine. It's like, hey, we actually are going to sit here and watch the damn thing and we're going to let it learn. And if you want to pay somebody for their time, then go pay an agency that's going to tinker, and God bless you. But if you want to pay somebody for their expertise, or if you're an agency, let's flip the coin, because half of our listeners are agencies. We're arming our competitors. But let's arm them the right way. If you're an agency, this is the expectation you have to manage. Change history means nothing. It means nothing. Who cares? It's you're there to know when to press the right button and when to leave it alone and let it go. And machine learning takes time, and you have to manage that expectation with the client. And if they don't like it, and I'm not saying this, every time I don't like that heads will roll type of mentality. I'm like, they can go whatever, but it really is an absolute no-win scenario if you let the clients lead. Nobody's ever walked into a doctor and said, you're going to do this surgery in this way with this scalpel at this time, right? You go into the doctor and says, this hurts. And then the doctor tries to help achieve your end goal. We have to look at our agency the exact same way.
Yep. No, I agree.
And it's too fragile. Like when with smart shopping, you have smart shopping is working in here. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to focus on other campaigns. This performance max is too fragile. You create a search campaign. This can affect this. You create a different broad TCPA. It can affect this. So it steals everything from every campaign. You create a YouTube campaign. It's affected because it runs on YouTube too. Create a display campaign. It's affected now.
It's like every campaign you add on that's going outbound or doing something is going to affect the PMAX campaign. And a real simple example we have, and it's like we made a mistake and we kind of figured it out after for this is we launched some dynamic remarketing, but the mistake we made was we left optimized targeting on it, which meant it went more outbound than remarketing. And we all know the display network is horrible with outbound traffic, right? So what we indirectly did was we brought in or showed Google a bunch of irrelevant bad traffic. Our cost per conversion on our PMAX campaign went from 51 to 90 in a week. A ridiculous increase.
And what you're saying is by allowing the dynamic remarketing campaign to go outbound more aggressively, we were leading PMAX in that direction because PMAX
in a bad direction. Yep. So when we create other campaigns and give them a direction, we have to be super careful with what direction we give those campaigns or which direction we want to take them, or else it's gonna go haywire in the PMAX. It'll recover, but it's just gonna take another week, 2 weeks for it. Yeah, it's gonna take time.
That's what's really funny is PMAX needs time. The other thing that scares me, and I haven't gotten a direct answer out of anybody, John included yet, because I think it's because we don't know. But if we build a PMAX campaign and we send it in the wrong direction, and the easiest example, there's a billion ways to do this, but the easiest example is tracking the wrong conversion.
Yep.
So lead generation, you tell PMAX, hey, this form, if somebody fills out this form, they're a good lead. The form is a bad form. You get a bunch of bot traffic, click farm traffic, whatever. PMAX campaign heads off in the wrong direction. Is that PMAX campaign reparable? Can I bring it back? Or do we just need to scrap it and build new?
I would scrap it.
That's what John said. But it also kind of depends, right? Like it depends on, and what would suck is imagine investing. I mean, our minimum right now is 10 grand a month unless they're in our incubator program. So 10 grand a month and PMAX can take 6 months to learn. So 10 grand a month for 6 months is $60,000. We spent $60,000 in this PMAX campaign. We didn't do anything wrong, but because the client's site wasn't properly optimized, asked for the wrong data, was aimed at the wrong audience. We've built this AI hunting dog that has a flawed snout and is now out there smelling for the wrong thing. And dude, really, right? Like that's kind of, I think it's a good analogy. What we're building is a robot hunting dog. But you got to be really careful with what you program that robot hunting dog to go hunt, because I don't know how to get it to unlearn. And I don't know, is it cheaper and more effective to right the ship, or is it cheaper and more effective to go kill that dog and then build yourself a new robot dog?
I personally think it's cheaper and more effective to kill that dog, build yourself a new dog, but put guardrails on the dog with other campaigns.
Because now with the first dog, you learned all your mistakes. And so the second dog, in theory, is equipped with all the right audiences, all the right asset groups, all the right. Yeah. That's it, dude. What's really funny about that is people are paying us to make their mistakes for them. So we have to make the mistakes super efficiently.
Yep. And just to counter that, it's like, if we make mistakes on a client account and we see something performing well on one account that can be applied to other accounts, dude, we go and do it immediately. If we see something going bad in one account and we're kind of testing it on another account, it's off immediately. Or if we see something doing really well in one account, we just go in and implement it in all the other accounts. It's like the conversation we had with clothing brands yesterday in our thread. and we tested something and it went well, and we're like, okay, let's test it across the board with all our clothing brands because it's doing well, right? It's like kind of those situations where we're making mistakes, but we're also taking all the good stuff we find and implementing it on the rest of the clients and fixing the other accounts as well.
No, dude, that's a brilliant point. That's actually part of the value proposition of working with any agency, which is I have 200 accounts and you, Mr.
Yeah.
Client, have one. So no matter how good you have, how good the person assigned to your account is, they don't get the other 199 learning lessons. And what I've noticed too that is really interesting, this comes from, I got to hear Jeff Hoffman speak. He was one of the co-founders of Priceline. Really brilliant guy. And he talked about info sponging. And he said that all the biggest learning lessons for him as an entrepreneur came from industries that had nothing to do with his industry. And so like his biggest idea, it was $1 billion idea, came from a magazine he read it was a Latino women's travel magazine. Latino women's business magazine. And then he had informed his travel business. And I've seen that elsewhere, like, you know, what works in an automotive campaign, if you can bring that over to like a private preschool company, like things that normally wouldn't cross-pollinate end up informing really well, because otherwise you're siloed from that information.
Just like Slumdog Millionaire.
Dude, that's exactly right. It's Slumdog Millionaire. It's all the learning lessons throughout life equipped him to not only win money, but also FA to find love. And what could be more, yeah.
It's like you won at life.
The Slumdog campaign. Performance Max is scary for all these reasons, but I think that the truth is, a dangerous truth is better than a convenient lie. So
what was the scariest part? Like, I want our clients to know this. Like, we ask these questions to Google themselves and they don't know the answer. So, like, we ask them, one team says, yeah, it should work like this. The other says, no, that's not true. Well, like, dude, they don't even know.
These aren't the idiot Google reps that call you either. These are advanced teams. These are teams on $1 million accounts. Like the product team. John asked the product team about PMAX and they're like, yeah, we're not sure.
We're literally telling them like, yeah, this is what's working. No, that's what you said doesn't work. We tried it here. Look at this account, look at this account, look at this account. And we did this in this account, this account, this account, and it worked. They're like, oh, really? They're like, yeah, really.
Yeah. Take notes. Yeah. Do y'all think we're getting negative keywords? Caden dropped in Slack yesterday that he saw somebody else told him they were getting negatives for PMAX.
Honestly,
it's just a gossip. I'm like,
yeah, because we heard you aren't.
It would, then there's no point in PMAX. People are gonna go crazy with the negative keywords, and they're gonna go like do negatives like 3 times a day, 3 times a week, and it's just gonna ruin the whole flow of the PMAX.
Do you think negatives would reset learning?
Depends on what you're negative.
I think negatives don't really have a role, because PMAX is already doing an amazing job recognizing top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel keyword, especially if it's like a mature campaign. Like if you're searching for a branded term, let's just say you're selling Dell, Lenovo, whatever laptop. If you go search Dell XPS 13-inch laptop, your Shopify listing or shopping listing is going to be right up front. But if you go best laptops for students, it's going to be nowhere to be found. So it's
PMAX is prioritizing the placements and networks properly already. We don't need negatives.
We don't really need negatives. Like negatives.
So I think I could think of a couple areas where negatives would be helpful, but I agree with you. They would hurt more than help, especially.
I already know what areas you're thinking, but in terms of general population of like people trying to navigate around Google Ads and use PMAX, it's gonna do them way more harm than good by playing with negatives.
They're gonna put PMAX on a leash in a way that's just gonna, and then they're gonna say, oh, PMAX didn't work, not realizing that they were the ones that inhibited it. That makes a lot of sense. I also wonder how far negatives would reach, because negatives for us pertain to search, but then you have to think about the way that Google is categorizing the audience. And if I have a negative inside of PMAX, does that negative apply to interest-based segmentation in marketing?
That's exactly what I'm thinking, to be honest. Like you can, like we think in a search campaign, like we should put this in negative because this is too broad, but maybe Performance Max use that for top of the funnel, like cheap stuff for YouTube, for display, then bring this person
down
to the like bottom of the funnel,
like,
and hit them with the bottom of the funnel keywords with the search and shopping. So if you're
that's
negative,
such a good point. The top of the funnel negative is actually a bottom of the funnel positive potentially.
Exactly. It's like if you're, it's like a good example I can think of right now on top of my head. It's like if you're searching for like the best mattresses for 2022, you don't want to show up on the search network or the shopping network for best mattress, but you might want to be there for a YouTube video if you're selling mattresses
Right.
as an ad when people search for best mattresses or something, right? So
See,
you want
that's
to
a
come up
really
with,
good point. Yeah.
so negatives there is going to negatively influence your campaign results.
It's a double negative with some. That's a positive.
Right?
All right, I'm gonna hop because I've got another call, but we
Yep.
should keep doing it. By the way, I don't know if y'all know this or if you read the comments, people love you too. I think they would love our other strategists, but they're not as brave as you are as far as shooting videos. So whatever you did with your interview, I got a bunch of like, oh, you should have them on more.
Thank you guys. We try.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, if you like Efe and Usama, drop it in the comments. Give them thumbs up. Let them know that you want to hear more from them. Otherwise, we shoot a video every day. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Closing words to you guys. Anything you want to say?
We're about to go record another video right now, me and Efe.
All right,
All for you guys. All for you.
Wait, before you go, I'm constantly looking for amazing people to come join our team. So if you're passionate about Google Ads and you're passionate about customer success, please go to solate.com/apply, and we'd love to see you as a part of the Solutions 8 team. Also, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that we actually know what we're doing. And don't forget to subscribe. We shoot a video every single day, and I don't want you to miss out on any of it. Lastly, if you have questions, comments, concerns, confessions, or you just hate my face and my voice, go ahead and hit us up in the comments. We get very little human interaction, and even the heckling is something that I kind of get a kick out of. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being subscribers if you're a subscriber. Don't forget to apply if you're interested in working at Solutions 8. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.